You want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day? My book, The Mirror Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you. Everything's better than it was because you are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. This is that go-getter energy that moves anyone to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And I'm going to show you how to choose to have all of this. It's not just stuff that happens to you. You're going to choose to have all of this. We put all of this together. What you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the podcast. There's even a book. If you don't have a book, go get it. It's called Work on Your Game. All of these, work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic, 3 communication skills that you must master ASAP. You must master these communication skills as quickly as possible. Like yesterday, you need to master these skills. Why? Communication is the key to everything. I'm communicating to you right now. If you want to be good in business, you got to communicate, because business is exchange of resources between what? People. Somebody on one side, somebody on the other side. Even if you're dealing with software, somebody had to create that software. Someone had to code that software. Someone had to put that together. And there's some communication going on. In sports, even if you're playing a solo sport, you probably have a coach. You have opponents that you're dealing with. You got trainers that you're dealing with. You have referees that you're dealing with, even when you're playing a solo sport. If you're in a team sport, of course, you got to be able to communicate, because if you can't communicate with your teammates what's going on, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, what type of person you are, and figure out who they are, then you probably won't have that much chemistry and maybe not even be able to get your jobs done on the field or on the court or wherever it is that you're playing your sport. I mean, I played basketball in countries where none of my teammates spoke English. Or I had maybe a few of them. A couple of them would speak English. The coaches did not speak English. None of the coaches spoke English. But we still had to figure out a way to communicate, because that's the only way I'd be able to be in harmony with what was going on the court. And they would understand what I was doing, and everybody would know what's the play that we're running, what we supposed to be doing. We had to know that. Even though we weren't speaking the same language of English, there were still ways we had to figure out how to communicate. If you're going to be a leader, if you're going to lead anyone, at least one person or more, you got to be able to communicate what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you want, what you don't want to the people whom you are either charged with leading or you're attempting to lead. They can't follow you if they don't know where you stand and what you're about. Any type of relationship, business relationship, a friend relationship, an intimate relationship, any kind of relationship, you have to communicate who you are and what you want, where you're going, what's in your mind, what you're interested in, what you're not interested in. You got to be able to communicate all these things in order to build a relationship with another person. Any type of friendship, of course, there's communication. That's the whole thing that makes it a friendship. If you cannot communicate with people, then you will be unable to gain cooperation. You'll be unable to begin to initiate or complete a sale. You'll be unable to make friends and maintain relationships. You can't do anything involving other people if you do not have the skill of communication. And understand, communication is not just talking. You can communicate through your written word. You can communicate through, if you're deaf, you can communicate through sign language. All right? You can communicate through Braille. You can communicate through your body language, nonverbal communication. All of this is communication. So today we're going to talk about 3 specific ways that we can all communicate, and what you need to learn in these 3 ways of communication so that you can master your ability to get your point across and get your ideas and your energies across to others whom you wish to influence. Point number 1, today's topic, once again, 3 communication skills you must master immediately. Point number 1, one-on-one conversation. This is you dealing with one other person, you communicating with them, them communicating with you. And oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned. Listening is part of communication. I'm pausing there for emphasis. Listening is part of communication. So this actually should be 4 communication skills. I'm actually going to talk about the ones where you're actually sending your communications out, but there should be another one on listening. Maybe I'll do a whole episode just on that, since I just remembered that I didn't add it into these points. But again, listening to what another person is saying is also part of communication. Everybody got that? So point number 1, here we are, one-to-one conversation. So this includes what you say, what you don't say, and what they say and what they don't say. 2 things I need you to understand here. Connection skill and subject matter. Both of them matter. One is talking to people. rapport building rapport with another person, a connection with another person to where they're willing to listen to what you're saying, and at least relax enough to be open to it. Learning to read between the lines of what people don't say. This is a communication skill. And being able to communicate between the lines of what you say to another person so that they get what you're saying, even though you didn't actually verbally say it. You understand what I'm saying? And two, can you hold a conversation with someone and talk about anything other than your job, the weather, and the local football team? Do you know about anything else that's going on in the world outside of your myopic world of your job, your family, your friends, whatever the things are that are most interesting to you? Are you worldly enough to do this? We talked about this in the episode on inches and miles. You remember that episode? Wasn't that long ago. Is that you need to go an inch wide and a mile deep on your subject matter and things that are most important to you, but a mile wide and an inch deep on everything else, so that you are worldly enough that you can have conversations with people about things other than just what you are most interested in. This one-to-one conversation skill, your ability to connect with another person so that they'll listen to you and that you can listen to them, and the subject matter. Can you talk to another person about what they care about and be interesting to them, even though you don't know the subject half as well as they know it? This is one-to-one conversation skill. Have you ever dealt with someone who, on paper, meaning before you actually had a direct communication with them, on paper everything seemed good? Maybe you were looking to hire somebody. You looked at their resume and everything on the resume looked good. All their references checked out. They had the kind of experience that you wanted. Seemed like they had the skill set that you needed. But then when you met this person and started talking to them, their communication skills were so bad that you had to second guess whether or not this person was as good of a candidate as you thought they were. Doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't hire them, because they may end up being great anyway, but you get the point that I'm making. Have you ever gone on a date with someone that you met on some social media dating site and they looked great, all the photos looked good, the things that they wrote in their profile sounded good, you exchanged messages with them, they were saying the right things, you had a phone conversation, things sounded great, everything sounded great, then you saw them in person and they looked just as good in person as they looked on their photographs, but then you try to have a conversation with the person and everything fell apart because they just didn't have conversational skill. They didn't have this one-on-one communication ability, and everything fell apart from there. Has that ever happened to anyone? That's why one-to-one conversation is so important. If you cannot create one-to-one connection with other people, you're going to have a hard time getting along in life in general, doing damn near anything. Point number 2. Today's topic is 3 communication skills that you must master as soon as possible. Number 2, one-to-many conversation. One-to-many communication, rather. Also known as public speaking. And let me be clear what I mean by public speaking. Public speaking does not mean that you're on a stage in front of 1,000 people trying to get them motivational talk. Not necessarily. That's part of it, but doesn't have to be that. Doesn't have to be you on a TED stage giving a TED talk. Doesn't have to be you having a podcast with thousands of people listening to it. Doesn't mean you have to try to get up in front of a room and just say whatever you want to say from the loudest megaphone that you can find. Public speaking means you're talking to 2 or more people at once. That's what we're deeming public speaking, at least for the purposes of this conversation. If you're talking to 2 or more people at the same time, that's public speaking. Anytime you're addressing a group, and a group is 2 or more. If you have a podcast, you're addressing a group. You can have 10 listeners, that's a group, public speaking. YouTube channel, public speaking. A group meeting at work, and you're talking and everybody else is listening, and there's at least 2 other people listening, that's public speaking. You're giving a sales presentation, that's public speaking. Public speaking, ladies and gentlemen, forces you to make this is what makes it different from one-on-one conversation. Public speaking forces you to make your message general enough for everyone to understand, but also specific enough to make sense for the topic. General enough that everybody who's listening to it gets it, but also you have to be specific enough that they can actually get some value out of it. Because I could give you some generic stuff here on this mic right now, and you would understand it, but would it be valuable to you if it's too generic? So you have to find that balance between being general enough that your whole audience or whoever your intended audience is gets it, but also specific enough that they can get some value out of it. If I'm talking to you one-on-one, yes, you one-on-one, then I could just talk specifically about your situation or answer your specific questions or talk specifically about whatever I've seen in you or from you, just for you. But if I'm talking to 20 people, I can't do that for all 20 people at the exact same time. So that's a skill. That's why public speaking is a skill. Another thing about public speaking that has nothing to do with the actual subject matter of what you're saying, but also public speaking is a confidence builder. It is an unimaginable confidence builder when you go from not being comfortable speaking in public to being comfortable speaking in public. It changes your confidence levels in ways that you would not understand, that have nothing to do with talking, have nothing to do with communication. Actually, have a lot to do with communication, but it has nothing to do with you being on the stage or your actual speaking to a group of people. Meaning, the confidence that you develop from mastering the skill of public speaking will make you a more confident person in general, just in life as a whole. You'll be more confident communicating one-on-one when you get better at public speaking. You'll be more confident in your nonverbal communication to anyone when you get better at public speaking, because you faced down the situation of having 10 sets of eyeballs looking at you, or 10,000 sets of eyeballs looking at you, or 10,000 sets of ears listening to you, and you still got your point across calmly and confidently, and everyone understood it and appreciated it. That will explode your confidence in ways that you could not have imagined if you haven't done this yet in your life. That's why public speaking is so important. And yes, there is an entire masterclass, entire episode of the Work on Your Game podcast talking about how to get better at public speaking. And if you're a member of the game group, you have access to it. So, addressing any group is public speaking. Again, a group could be 2 or more people. You will develop your skills of persuasion and influence when you get better at public speaking, because it's much harder. I would guess it's much harder to persuade and influence a group of people than it is to persuade and influence one individual person. Now, that could change based on who you're talking to. And it could change based on the group dynamics and the energy and your position amongst whoever it is you're talking to. If they know you already, if they never heard of you before, whether it's one person or a group of people. But I would think, just generally speaking, I'm saying that it's harder to persuade a group of people and influence a group of people simply because a group of people, each individual has their own agenda and their own thoughts and beliefs and opinions that they brought into the room with them. Whereas when you're dealing with someone one-on-one, you only got one set of thoughts, beliefs, and opinions. If you're talking to a group and there's 30 people in the room, that's 30 different sets of beliefs and opinions. Now, they may have some in common, but I guarantee you it ain't 100% in common. And you have to try to persuade all of them at once. That's a skill. That's a skill you must develop. And let me give you a secret here. All right, listen very closely to this secret. The key to persuading and or influencing a group of people has nothing to do with the actual words that you say or the subject matter that you're talking about or who they are, whether they're Democrat or Republican, black or white, or where they come from. It is all about your confidence. The more you believe in what you're saying, the more they will believe in what you're saying. And then you get the domino effect. That as soon as you start to push over that one big domino of your belief overpowering everyone else's whatever they're feeling, everybody else is going to fall in line, because that's the way that it works with group dynamics. Remember that I told you that, and don't forget it. Many people don't want to be in public when it comes to their communication. They don't want to do any public communication, meaning group speaking one to many. The reason why people don't want to do it is because speaking in public touches on one of the 6 basic human fears. And that actually touches on a couple of them. One of them is loss of love. That's one of the basic human fears. The loss of love doesn't necessarily mean your husband or wife running away with the landscaper on you. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. But loss of love could just be the public deciding that they don't like you. A group of people deciding that you're not part of our group no more. Your friends deciding that you're not in the circle anymore. You're outside of the circle now. You're excommunicated from our little club. That's a loss of love. That's one of the 6 basic human fears laid out by Napoleon Hill in the book Think and Grow Rich. Another one, this is the one that is really important, that keeps a whole lot of people from speaking in public, speaking one to many, speaking anywhere where there'll be an audience listening, is criticism. The fear of criticism. And this is, in my opinion, we talked about this before also, is that the fear of criticism is the most prevalent fear that controls the most people today. We're going into 2020. This is the most prevalent fear that there is, the fear of being criticized. This is why, and I think I'm going to do a whole topic on this coming up soon. So many of us, I feel, don't say what we really think when we're speaking in public, when we're speaking to a group. And when I say speaking in public, I mean something you post on social media, on your Facebook wall or your Instagram or your Twitter, or even in your YouTube videos or your podcast. You may not say what you really think in full because you don't want to have to deal with that backlash, that loss of love that maybe somebody in your audience will decide they don't like you anymore, or the criticism that someone who's not even in your audience heard what you said and decided to attack you because of it. A lot of people don't want to deal with that. So they tailor their words. They edit themselves internally before they speak because they don't want to be criticized and they don't want to lose love. Mastering public speaking will help you conquer the fear of criticism. Why? Why will it help you conquer the fear of criticism? Because the better you get at communicating one to many, communicating to a group, the more confident you will be in saying something that you know could possibly cause someone to want to criticize you, but you'll have the verbal dexterity to say the things that you need to say the way that you need to say them, that you can either A, head off the criticism before it happens, or B, you'll be completely comfortable handling the criticism when it comes, because one or the other is going to happen. You can just be more comfortable with it. The better you are at dealing with one-to-many conversation, you will not be so ruffled when criticism comes from the masses. Point number 3. Today's topic is 3 communication skills that you must master immediately. The third one is written communication, also known in business as copywriting. We talked about copywriting in one of my emails that I sent out in early October 2019. If you're not on my email list, go to workonmygame.com, get on the list. Written communication. In business, they call it copy. I don't know why they call it copywriting, but I guess just to differentiate it from regular writing. It's words that are written in order to persuade and influence. That's what copywriting is. Your written communication skill on our topic here is getting your thoughts across in written format. This is a very valuable skill because to take your spoken words to a written format, you have to condense what you said. I don't know if anyone listening has ever had your spoken words transcribed. If you have, you would realize very quickly, especially if you're like me and you re-emphasize points and I do write how I talk, but not exactly how I talk, you realize that you say a whole lot more words than you would actually write if you were getting the exact same point across. You had to be a lot more concise in your written word than in your spoken word. And if you want to sell anything to anyone in life through written words, you need great copy. And here's the other thing. Copy also exists in speaking. See, if you ever gone to a website where something was being sold and instead of there being a long page of text, there was actually a video. Maybe there was a long page of text and there was a video. If you've been on any of my pages, on my websites, you've seen a video of me talking and there's text on the page. That video, when I'm saying the words that I'm saying in that video, and if I'm trying to persuade you to make a purchase, that's copy. All right, we just call it video, is video copy. Or video sales copy, whatever you want to call it, but that's copy. If somebody's speaking with the purpose of persuading you to do something, that is also communication. That in business we would call that copy. So you can call that one-to-many or one-to-one communication. You can even call it written communication because it might get written down before it gets spoken. It might be off a script. If you want to sell anything, you got to get good at copy. And there are courses on this stuff when it comes to copy that you can invest in. So if you want to get better at persuading people through the written word, you can invest in some copywriting courses, read some books on copywriting. There are plenty of them out there that have been around for a very long time. But these 3 communication skills, along with listening, which I didn't mention, these are skills that you need to master as soon as possible. You want to get better at influencing people, persuading people, building rapport with people, connecting with people, getting people to do what you want them to do. You got to get better at communicating with them. They won't know what you want, nor will they be moved to do it if you don't have solid skills in communication. So let's talk about, again, 3 communication skills that you must master as soon as possible. Point number 1, one-to-one conversation. This is your ability to connect with another person just to get them to relax and be open to listening to you is one part of it. And then there's the subject matter. What are you talking about? Can you talk to another person who is not interested in what you do for a living, does something completely different, and wants to hold a conversation somewhat about that? Are you capable of lasting in such a conversation? Do you have anything in your mind besides your job, your family, the weather where you live, and what's going on with the local football team? Are you worldly enough to have that conversation? You should be, or on your way to being there, because I just talked about this in the episode on inches and miles. Go a mile wide and an inch deep on matters of the world that are not related to your direct chief aim in life, so that you can hold a conversation with people. You don't want to be the guy who looks great or the girl who looks great, but then when you meet someone who's interested in you, they're no longer interested because you can't hold a conversation. Don't let that be your downfall. Point number 2, one-to-many conversation, otherwise known as public speaking. Talking to 2 or more people at once is public speaking. Any kind of group address, podcast, YouTube video, group meeting, sales presentation, all of this is public speaking. It forces you to make your message general enough for everyone to understand, but specific enough to make sense for the topic for people to understand it and actually get value out of it. This is a skill of persuasion and influence, and it builds confidence in you in unimaginable ways when you master public speaking that go outside of your speaking ability. Public speaking is a performance, and many people don't want to be a public speaker in any way, even talking to 3 people, because it touches on a couple of the 6 basic human fears. One of them is loss of love, meaning the audience or the crowd turning on you and attacking you because they didn't like what you said, and of criticism, which is a sister of loss of love in this sense. And criticism just being someone attacking your ideas or your views or your positions, or saying that you're wrong and you feeling like you won't have anything to go back up against them with. But understand this. As you get better at public speaking, you will get better at dealing with any possible criticism that comes. You'll even get so good at it that you can address the criticism before it even happens. All right, take the words out of people's mouths and address it for them before they even have to criticize you with it, kind of like I did in the What You Can Learn from Donald Trump episode. You listen to that, you get a good, I would say, masterclass on how to do that before the criticisms come, to take care of them up front. And point number 3. Written communication, also known in business as copywriting. This is getting your thoughts across in writing. It's a valuable skill because the spoken word and the written word are not exactly the same. If I transcribed every word from today's podcast and just put it out for you to read, you would understand it, but it would be very hard to read. Written word is much more concise than spoken words. Therefore, if you're good at speaking, does not necessarily mean you're going to be good at writing. If you're good at writing, does not necessarily mean you're going to be good at speaking. They are both they are independent of each other skills. Now, there are some elements of each that can help the other, but they are independent. A good writer is not necessarily a good speaker, and a good speaker is not necessarily a good writer. And some people who are good writers, they didn't even write their stuff. They got ghost writers. But that's a whole different topic. You want to get better at communication. What I suggest you do is get the leadership bundle. These are my 3 books on rapport building, leadership, and communication. 25 conversation skills, 25 reasons to quit worrying, and 55 daily people skills. All 3 of those books. You get all 3. Yes, all 3. Go to workonmygame.com/LB for the leadership bundle. And oh yeah, you know you got to be in the game groups. You get access to everything. 700 plus hours, probably over 800 hours now of what we've been dropping here on this podcast. Work on your game. Dre all day.